Welcome to UnMASKing with Male Educators. As the year comes to a close, we are looking back at some of our most downloaded episodes of the new season. 2 of the most listened to episodes, and 2 episodes that are very personal to me. In January, we'll be back with fresh conversations with more inspiring male educators from around the globe, and some exciting news about where we're headed for 2026. I wish you and your family and friends a happy holiday. And if you haven't already, please share this episode, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to this podcast. And as always, take out your notes and enjoy the show.
Our schools aren't compassionate places. They are sites of suffering, right? So to really hold a space as an educator for people to dream and stay there and hang out there is important. So that's real important to me. And that's what justice means to me, is allowing people to dream about the possible, something better for us all.
That was the voice of this week's guest, Dr. Bill Penuel. Bill works closely with teachers and leaders, primarily in secondary science education, and he currently supports and designs the Compassion and Dignity for Educators project at the University of Colorado Boulder. Bill is the co-author of a new book called Creating Compassionate Change in School Communities, Leading Together to Address Everyday Suffering in Schools. With a title like that, you know exactly what he's about, and you know exactly what we're going to talk about as we talk about these masks. In this conversation, we discuss 1, how to shift your relationship to pain in order to best serve yourself and your students. 2, how educators can put self-compassion into action. 3, what does skillful care look like for children who are systemically marginalized? And 4, what is an inside-out approach to school change? Sound like you're ready? Take out your notes and let's start the show. As a male educator at your school site, it can get lonely. Only 23% of K-12 educators in America are male. And just think about what this gender gap means for your male students. They experience disproportionate levels of discipline. This is a show for male educators who want to feel more understood by their community and want to create emotionally safe classrooms and schools for the next generation of male students. Welcome to UnMASKing with Male Educators. Bill Penuel, welcome to Talking with Male Educators. I'm glad to have you.
Good to be here, Ashanti. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Would you just tell folks what you want them to know about you before we jump into these masks and this conversation about education? But what's important for people to know as they get ready to listen to this conversation?
Yeah, so I'm an educator first, and I work in higher education. And I primarily work with teachers who are in the classroom. I'm a faculty member at the University of Colorado Boulder in the School of Education and the Institute of Cognitive Science. And I'm also a fellow at the Renee Crown Wellness Institute, where we do the work that we're going to be talking about today on compassion and dignity for educators.
Passion and dignity for educators. How we have a huge need for that right now.
We do.
Man. Well, as a former teacher and a little boy who was raised by a mother who became a teacher, I love teachers, education, and so I'm excited for this conversation. Since we're going to start with our masks to kind of really get to know each other, as the guest, you get to decide who goes first. So either you want me to go first with the mask or you want to go first, and it's your choice.
I'd love to see your mask first, because I often like to make connections by listening first to other people and hearing about them. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what connections we can find to each other through this process.
Okay. Well, I've been challenged over these episodes to really make the mask as fresh and present as possible. And so this is what's coming up today. And so here we go. This is the drawing today. I'm working on a character for that. The 3 words I say for the front are caring, passionate, excited. And I don't know if I've ever used excited before, but I think it came today because I was like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of excitement pushing through. I think caring people who know me know, if you walked in my classroom as a first time stranger, you'd be like, maybe this guy's mean, right? Is he mean? Right. But I think my kids, because I've invested in them so much, like anytime I'm giving some, push or some, when I was a teacher, I'm not a teacher in the classroom anymore, but I've tried to deposit so much in their own, in their emotional, social, relational bank account that like I'm giving them a hard time and I'm pushing them hard because
you can.
Because I can. Because I believe I've earned it. I think I've tried to earn it, the right to say, no, right now you're not gonna get to do what you're asking me to do because I need you to do this. And not that always they're going to be returned with a okay, fine. They may still push back, but at least it's not because I'm just saying no to say no, right? It's like there's usually some reason behind it, even if I don't always tell them all the reasons. So that's the front. The things that as a teacher, I guess because we started our teacher persona, I'm constantly thinking about the work I do in audiences when I'm doing a talk. This is what I'm trying to push forward as that persona, right? As an educator. And the back. And I think that I'm looking back when I was in the classroom and even today. I have two on here right now. The third one is escaping me right now, but I put these two words. I put worry and disappointed. When I was a teacher, when I left engineering to become a teacher, the first couple of years, I was struggling. Like my salary dropped 66%. I didn't know how to, I have a budgeting skill for that little bit of money. You know what I'm saying? I created a budget for the engineering lifestyle.
The engineering budget.
It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. So I was constantly behind the scenes worrying, how am I going to pay my insurance this month? How do I pay all of these bills right now? How do I, because my lifestyle had already elevated and I was trying to reduce, but my students wouldn't know it. I kept it behind there, right? I didn't blame them for it. It was a choice I had made. And I think sometimes disappointed, at the end of the month, you try and you want to go to the movie, you want to go hang out with some friends, and I can't. I'll meet y'all at the club that's gonna have a free entrance, and and the drinks are half off, right? Like I can't meet you for dinner before, and I can't go to the show, right? And it was just like, man, I think sometimes as a teacher, I was like disappointed in myself that I had to pull away socially from some of my friends who I had built some deep connections with. So those are the two that stand out for me on this. Something about this teacher persona mask. And if I was thinking about a third one, I was just saying I don't think my students would know that I really, really I felt like I was supposed to be doing this work as a teacher. And sometimes I was not feeling like I was doing a good job at it, because they were not doing well academically, not because I wasn't ready for it or excited about it. I just somehow was missing the mark. And so those are some of the things that I was thinking as a teacher that showed up.
Thanks for sharing. I really appreciate that. And I know how challenging it must be to keep this fresh since you got to make a mask for every guest. So thanks for making it fresh today.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll show this version here.
Okay.
Explain. And we got some overlaps. I'm glad that I asked you to go first. So, and also I wanted to say that I got some help with this. I talked with my co-author, Ashley Potvin, on our new book that we're going to talk about, Creating Compassionate School Change in School Communities. So what do you think I should put on here? And what do you think is on the backside of my mask? And it was fun to do that with her and talk. And so we had an exchange over this too. We both agreed kindness. And so caring, compassion, and I have a radiating heart because that's, I think, something I cultivate and actively, hope to project. And I think I do. This middle one, it's a little hard to see. I wrote confidence in students, but it's a spiral because my students all say, you give a lot of feedback. And I believe in them, but I believe in them to push them and to encourage them to iterate on their ideas and get sharper and go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think like you were saying, you earn that ability to do that through cultivating the relationship. So it's not just pushing without the care. It's both those things together. And it's a spiral because I'm trying to support. We're doing this dance of supporting each other towards growth. And then Ashley said, and so I wrote it here, but I wrote it in a particular way. It's a little hard to see. It says committed to justice. But justice in a kind of starry, visioning, maybe even Afrofuturist kind of way, like where we're dreaming beyond where we've been today. And I like to hold space as an educator for people to dream beyond what schools look like today, what our communities look like today, and really make the space for people to linger in what could be. I feel like this work on compassion is like that. Like, our schools aren't compassionate places. They are sites of suffering, right? So to really hold a space as an educator for people to dream and stay there and hang out there is important. So that's real important to me. And that's what justice means to me, is allowing people to dream about the possible, something better for us all.
I mean, I'm gonna let you get to the back. When you first said kindness and then caring, compassion, and I wrote caring, and then I wrote confidence in students, and I wrote committed to justice. I was like, oh, that's beautiful. They all start with the letter C. But such a
I didn't think about that.
So beautiful that. Thank you. And now, would you like to share the back?
Yeah, I do. This is helpful, and I put at the top contemplative practice. So, and I noticed I didn't even introduce myself that way when you asked me for the introduction. I can be a little shy, but the reason I came to this work is that I've been doing contemplative practice, meditation practice for almost 30 years. It's been a core part of how I've been able to support my own growth as a human and had other people support me growing and becoming who I am today. And also dealing with the other stuff that I have on this mask, which is that behind that is still impatient. And I feel resentment in education as a teacher. Sometimes I'm impatient with people. I feel that inside. I feel resentment when there's extra work to be done. And this part is what helps me work through that, especially resentment. There's a Tibetan Buddhist slogan that says, stay close to your resentment. And that might sound a little paradoxical because, good Buddhists, shouldn't we not feel any resentment? We should feel peace and calm all the time. No, you feel the same things everybody else feels. What you're doing is relating to it different. And this staying close to is like being friends with, like getting close to that sense of, I'm impatient right now. What does impatience feel like? I'm resentful right now. What does that feel like here, now, in this body? And the freedom to not react out of that place comes from being willing to just settle into it, get curious about it, be friendly toward it. So my contemplative practice helps me deal with these things that they're behind the mask, and I kind of want to keep them behind the mask, but they're allowable for me to see and be with and be present to, even as I'm interacting with other people.
Yeah. Thank you for that. If someone asked you, how do you deal, let's say that before, you shared this as a mask here, if someone asked you, how do you deal with impatience? How do you deal with resentment? Does your mind go to my contemplative practice helps me do that? Is that how that those are the places that kind of bring you some resolve or some peace in the middle of all the things that are stirring up?
I think it's more the kind of on the spot practices that I have, and that's actually part of our course on compassion and dignity for educators, is that we definitely encourage people to spend time in a chair, on a cushion, lying down, standing up, sitting outside. But we have these other kind of practices that you can do on the fly. And I just told you one. this slogan. I remember this slogan. I keep it in my head. I was like, stay close to your resentment. Oh, that pops into my head. And I'm like, oh, that reminds me. What is this? What is this feeling inside right now?
Yeah.
How can I relate to it differently? Because I want to push it. If I want to push it away, that's going to cause me to make it visible to others and react out of that way, that in ways that I'm showing my impatience, I'm showing my resentment, instead of like greeting somebody with kindness, and approaching them. Sometimes we use phrases in the moment that do come from the contemplative practices. So if somebody's pushing my buttons, I might say, like, may you be free from suffering, in my head, not out loud. But I turn a phrase where I wish them well, wish them happiness, wish them ease, wish them peace, wish them happiness, wish them freedom from whatever they're going through right now that's making them yell at me, do whatever they're doing that's pushing my buttons. So that comes off the cushion, but it's also a separate set of kind of practices for meeting the moment.
Yeah. When you said that part, something really stood out to me. When you said, if I don't keep it close and I'm trying to push it away, the resentment, then other people are going to notice it. Other people are going to notice it, right? They're going to feel it, the energy coming out. They're not feeling me being present with all the things I'm carrying right now, right? And I wonder, because you imagine teachers and educators are navigating how they're working with students all every day, right? They're navigating students in the chaotic ways, and they're navigating students in whatever's happening in the classroom is happening right there in the moment. They don't get a chance to be like, how about you just let me go sit on this cushion over here and get myself back.
You don't
together.
Get to do that. You don't get to do that. Yeah.
You better be hot right there in the moment, ready to like at least pretend like you got something figured out, right? So imagine, like, how does self-compassion, how does the ability to be like, I'm gonna keep this close, I'm gonna notice what is happening here, I'm going to then come back to the idea that, okay, something is happening in this thing that wants me to fight against. Stay close. Don't stay close, because when I start pushing away, then I'm like, it's gonna get felt in another way, right? And stay curious. How do we help educators like do that in the chaos of all the things that we're experiencing in schools today? What are some ways that you all talk about how to help teachers find more self-compassion even compassion for not only ourselves, but definitely, if we don't have it for ourselves, it's going to be really hard to have it for others, right?
It's going to be hard to have it for others. Everybody can see that you don't mean what you say when you offer care and compassion, because you haven't sat with your own pain. You hadn't learned how to do that, right?
Yeah.
Because so much of compassion is actually just sitting with the pain and the suffering in front of you and learning how to just be with it and know that it's not actually going to destroy you to sit with it. It's not going to do that. We have a certificate program. It's 4 courses. And the whole first course is really based on providing a foundation for mindfulness, also exploring loving kindness for easy beings. Usually that's our pets. We have the simplest relationship often to our animal companions in our world. But sometimes it's children, a niece, a nephew, grandchild. That's who we have a simple thing where when we think of them, our heart just opens up. We feel love. It's easy to say, I hope you're happy, right? Then we turn in the second course to self-compassion, and the work gets real hard for teachers, as it does for everybody in the helping professions. Talking about nurses, doctors, ministers, rabbis, all these folks. Self-compassion is hard because, as you were just saying, like, you got to stop in the middle of helping people, even for a second, and acknowledge your own pain, the pain that's in this body, and say, that pain is worth paying attention to in this moment when I'm supposed to be helping other people. That's hard. That's hard. And all our educators say that's hard. Because that's the first step in self-compassion, is acknowledging pain is here, suffering's here, this body, the thing that I'm experiencing. It may be in the room too, and it's here. And then the second step is, wow, people in my situation, it's human to feel pain in this situation. Call this the step of common humanity in self-compassion. And then there's that flip towards the wish. May I, and we, all of us who are going through this kind of suffering, may we be free of it. In a meditation practice, we can really let those stages linger, those 3 stages, and get a feel for what those 3 steps are in self-compassion. In the moment, then once we've had a little practice, we can do that in the middle of the classroom. We can do that in the hallway. And it takes, but we're doing it in a second at a time. We're just tapping in for a little bit, acknowledging, yep, pain's here. Other people are like me are in this pain. And what that second step especially is so important is oftentimes our suffering takes us inside ourselves. We want to withdraw. We feel depleted. We got to go and escape the situation to get resourced. But if we realize that, hey, it's human to feel pain in this kind of situation, and lots of people feel pain, and we also say, and really, like I was saying earlier in my mask, I like to get people to dwell in that space of dreaming. It's the same with compassion. Let's dwell for a moment in the possibility and the wish that we could be free of this pain, and allow yourself to hang out there. That is why self-compassion and compassion too resources us, doesn't deplete us. What depletes us is actually staying with empathy, especially when we're feeling empathy towards other people, and you stay and you start to imagine yourself in that pain. But the move from empathy to compassion is, being moved by the pain, but then shifting into, I wish that this person in front of me be free of suffering. I set an intention to do whatever is skillful right now to alleviate that suffering. That shifts empathy from the depleting aspects of having an open heart to the resourceful and resourcing aspects of having an open heart.
So much came up there.
Sorry, I went on for a while.
No. It was actually perfect. So many things came up in terms of me being a teacher and realizing that what I was seeing in front of me when I was my first year teaching, I was going to quit. Like, I saw smart kids failing my class, and I was like, you can't be failing my class. Like, there's plenty of these teachers who don't like you at this school. I talk to them all the time. I'm not one of them.
I'm not one of them.
I'm not one of them. I like you. I care about you. I want you to, your success matters to me. Like, I want you to feel what joy can feel like. But every time you walk in here, you're angry. Every time you walk in here, you're in a bad mood. Every time you walk in here, like, we're battling, and you're battling somebody who cares about you. So why are you doing that with me? Like, I mean, it's okay, but just so you know that you're battling somebody who is trying to be on your team. And I think that if I think about that compassion, if I think about what happened as I began to get clear, I think before even I had a practice of my own, when I was about transitioning from engineering to teacher, I worked as a bouncer in a city here in the Bay Area. We were called hosts, but technically we're bouncers, right? You just had a nice jacket that said host on the back, but technically you were a bouncer, So this one day, like, I worked inside, these other guys worked the door, right? And the door guys always get hookups, right? The door guys get hookups. So they could, somebody wants to get in and they don't want to wait in line. There's always a little bit of quid pro, cash in my pocket pro, right? So we, like, the guys inside always were like, kind of like, this ain't really fair, because they go home with pockets full of money. We go home with just headaches, So I came outside one day to get some fresh air, and the guy at the front gate, who was the front door, the guy was giving him a lip, and I'm just looking around, and he said, "Hey man, why are you talking to me like that? That hurts my feelings." And I'm looking at this bouncer guy, like, and he's like a taller guy than me. I'm a big dude, but he was He's taller than me, probably even like wider width than me. And I'm like, did he just say that guy hurt his feelings? And I watched it, and the guy just was like disarmed. Like it was like a
Yeah.
what'd you say to me? It was a moment of
Yeah.
like, wait, what was going on here? And I watched it, not just because I'm an observer. I just pay attention to a lot of things, and it was something that was really it took me by surprise, right? That this big guy at the front gate of a club, popular club, lying around the corner, is telling some guy, "You hurt my feelings." And I was not in touch with my feelings at that time, so I definitely I had learned what it meant to like not show feelings. So to hear somebody, definitely another man, talk about hurt feelings at that, like my feelings are I'm gonna put my hands on you. That's my feeling, right? I knew that feeling, but to say how I felt, to be able to
Yeah.
acknowledge it and out loud
Yeah.
in front of a crowd full of people, it was a conversation that I had to have with him at some point in the future around what'd that come from? And it's this idea that like some people are looking for a fight, but I don't have to take the invitation. They're trying to invite me into a battle, but I don't have to accept the invitation. And when I heard him describe it like that, I was like, wow, right? As a person who believes in a higher power, who believes in compassion and kindness, I've had my buttons pushed, right? And I believe it's always my choice to let them be pushed or acknowledge them and keep moving, right? But when you said that, like, oh, what would it be like to just recognize that if I get good at this, and as a teacher, I learned this as a teacher, before I even started, even kind of, before I went to India and learned how to meditate and learn how to take a breath and learn how to, I felt that inside, but a lot of it had been trained out of me because in my community, as a boy, you can't show feelings. So you definitely don't talk about them. You definitely don't tell anybody that hurt your feelings ever, right? But it was a powerful moment of just recognition, like, oh, that became one of my superpowers as a teacher, you know? When a student was mouthing off, I'm like, hey, like I said, I'm on your team. Why are you fighting with me? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not your enemy here. And right, how do you help disarm a kid who is used to being the enemy of everybody, or has learned that that's why you keep people far away from you, you know? At least an arm's distance away so they don't get too close, you know?
Yeah. What you're saying reminds me of another saying, something that we introduce in our course and that I have on the wall right in front of me. I'm going to read it. It's a part of a prayer from Joan Halifax. And it says, "May I offer my care and presence unconditionally, knowing that it might be met by gratitude, indifference, anger, or anguish." And that's a practice to learn how to do that. And when I say that, I remember that I'm just offering this care freely. And what causes resentment is when I'm thinking I need something in return, that something's got to come back to me. And as you're saying, it's like you can let it impact you, the response, or not. But some of that is that the response is, hey, wait, I'm expecting that this be reciprocated in some way. And that's what's driving that. And there may be a need there, right? I'm not saying we got to let people walk over us. That's not at all the case. In fact, self-compassion helps you recover your own dignity and know when you got to do what that bouncer said, of like, you hurt my feelings. Why are you talking to me like that? And saying it with calm and without reactivity, because you're like, I'm saying this from a place of knowing my own dignity and knowing that my feelings are worth something. So you're more likely not to be a pushover, and that's the case.
And you also said earlier, like, that it's human to feel this pain. It's not genderized to feel this pain. It's not masculine, feminine to feel. It is human to feel this pain. And when I don't let myself recognize that I'm human while I'm in service of trying to serve everyone else, I'm doing myself a disservice in service of others, right?
That's right. That's right. And that gets to the idea, one of the big ideas in our book on creating compassionate change in schools is common humanity. This idea that at root, we all want to be happy. We all want to be free of suffering. We have so many different ways that we've learned how to do that. We are different. And so this is not an assertion that our differences aren't beautiful, but it is an assertion that what we have in common is that person who's pushing my buttons at root, like me, they want to be happy. How they're going about it might not seem skillful to me, or I might not understand it, but they want to be happy, just like me. And a lot of our teachers will tell us too, oh, that phrase, that comes up. And I remember that on the fly when I'm in a difficult situation. It helps me a lot to see this person as just like me.
Have you found for yourself, like, where have you found difficulty with the idea of, man, I am trying to give so much to others, and yet I am not even having the same compassion for myself as I'm offering others? Like, is there a place that you found that really challenging? I mean, it's a big challenge for me as I'm feeling it right now. But
I think it's huge for all educators. And when I first came to some of the work too, I realized, I kind of want to gloss over some of the self-compassion stuff. And I think there are a couple of turns of heart that helped me and that help a lot of educators with that. One is, thinking about how we treat our friends and then asking ourselves, couldn't we treat ourselves and our own pain like that a little bit more? And that helps people to realize that, wow, I treat myself really badly. And it's not how I treat anybody else in my life. So why am I treating myself this way? And then the other way kind of plays with our very service orientation. And that is the realization that unless I am pretty well resourced and unless I can actually be in touch with what causes me pain and suffering, I can't actually help other people with theirs. And so that just goes to our root motivation to want to help others, and it turns it into, well, if I want to be effective in this, I've got to really pay attention to how to develop some self-compassion, know what it feels like to be a body in pain, really, and wrestle with whatever pain is arising for me. Because if I'm not in touch with that, how can I really be anything but a fake for somebody else as they're going through it? And they may be going through things that I've been through, but I can't really sit with them and bear witness to their suffering and offer an open heart unless I know how to do that myself.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. I met with a group of dads at a conference, and it was men, but there was a dad's group, but all men were welcomed into that space, and many of the men were dads of boys who had attended some of the schools in the area. And I said to them, in each of us, there are all of our past selves. And you may not remember the stories of all your past ages of 12, 13, 14, 15. You may not remember all the stories. The ones that are the highlights you remember. You remember the ones that created core memories for you. But it can be easy, if we're not careful, to ignore all the parts of ourselves that we don't like to see, we didn't like, we weren't proud of, we weren't happy with. And if we're not careful, we could actually miss that could be showing up in our children, in our these weren't teachers necessarily, but it was in our sons, in our community, in our cousins, our nephews. And we can ignore that they're carrying some pain that we carried at some point, but we have gotten over it so fast, and we've ignored it so strongly. We've pushed it to behind the job and the career and the fancy car and the house and the responsibility and the mortgage, that when we see it, we're like, hey, get over it. We could be insensitive to it. We could ignore it. And I tell teachers the same. If you are a student who always loved school, you may have a hard time with those students in your class who don't like you or your class or this school or this community or themselves. And if you take it personal, you miss the opportunity to be able to be understanding that everyone is not going to see the school like you saw school.
That's such an important point, Ashanti, too. And it speaks to the skillfulness that's involved in a really good, compassionate response. In our course, one of the ways that we support that is we have people do a combination of field notes of their own interactions alongside some readings in a subfield in educational research called critical care. And this is work by Chicana and Black and Indigenous scholars around what does it mean to care for children and youth who are systemically marginalized. What does skillful care look like? What does it need to look like? What are different things that could look like care that I didn't think about? I appreciate being in a big group of educators that are, I'm fortunate I get to do this and see this, that are in a group, suffering arises, and I see somebody respond in the moment to that in the most skillful way that I would have never come up with. And I realize, they have both, they're seeing a form of suffering that I didn't see or seeing it in a particular way. And they have a repertoire of responsiveness that's skillful. And that's true for the, educators. I'm one of those kids. I loved school. Now, the thing that helped me was I had things I couldn't talk about. I had a gay parent. I was interested, the things that most interested me were things that I didn't study in school. And so I had to go to the library on the weekends, and my mom took me there to go do that. So I know what it is like to have things to hide and also what it's like to do that. But for the most part, it's hard for me to understand the kid who doesn't, who really struggles with school. And so it's so important to see other models of that, to read about it, to see it, and also just notice how it's skillful. And that's what we do in our throughout our courses. It's like, here, just take an interaction for 15 minutes that was you're remembering. What happened in it? Where was their suffering? Where was their compassion? What might you do differently if this kind of situation comes up again? How does this relate to what we're reading and talking about in the course? And that helps people hone their skill in compassion, because it isn't just about an open heart. It's about skill. It's about knowing when and how to offer care.
And I imagine you've heard this story before, but I imagine you've heard the story from teachers. What you just said is so powerful. Like, if it looks different than what you're used to it, then it can seem like it's not, it makes no sense. It means it's kind of like I send a kid out and he comes back with a juice box. How dare you give a kid a juice box who I just punished by kicking him out of my class? And I think that when teachers make it about like, how can I punish the kid even more, not knowing that there could be already enough punishment, self-punishment happening in that child.
Yeah.
Maybe the juice was maybe they were having a sugar deficiency in them, or maybe they were hungry and they can't focus in your class because they, first of all, don't care about your class. But second of all, they're like how oftentimes the what happens after gets a message gets made up about what it means. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as an administrator, when I got referrals coming to the office, I would have, it's not just one, it's multiple kids having meltdowns at multiple same times in the same day. So I'm not just dealing with your kid who you sent. I'm dealing with 8 of them that are in the hallway on different referrals for different reasons, right? And I think that sometimes teachers, they say, you send them back in 20 minutes. Now, I often didn't do that, but I've heard it and I've done it. As a teacher, I remember, how you going to send them back? I just sent him out to get a break from this. And I've been all types of the layers of education. I've been on both sides of it. Like, how you going to send him back in 5 minutes? And I think that what we end up missing is like, okay, so what am I missing? And it's to be human for myself is like, I'm not ready to deal with this kid again. If I'm being really honest, I'm not ready.
That's
I'm not
right.
prepared.
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready. I don't have a contemplative practice right now. I I'm 25 other kids that need my attention. I don't have the energy right now. And so how do we be human around those things and be able to say it now?
That's right. Yeah, we need other places for kids to go. You're reminding me that one of the things that we invite people to inquire about, because this shows our edge for compassion, is this idea of deservingness. At the end of the day, we think some people are deserving of compassion and other people's aren't. And that is, we all have edge, right? So let's just acknowledge that, right? Like some things we think of as, okay, this kid deserves my compassion right now. This kid deserves this kid doesn't. And this is a way to explore, how do I expand that a bit? Because deservingness at the end of the day gets in the way of compassion. And the two areas where we invite teachers to reflect on that, and that's also in our book, we have a written reflection on this, is discipline and grading, right? Every teacher has an idea about what a kid deserves based on what they did, to push my buttons, to upset somebody else, to cause harm, right? And the grade they deserve to get based on the effort they put in, based on what I think they know. And when we explore that and ask ourselves, can we still have accountability and responsibility and an open heart? That's a real invitation to grow our compassion, because it's not about being a pushover. It's not about giving up accountability and responsibility. All this practice of compassion is really consistent with restorative approaches, right? Where we expect people to come back into the community, but they need to acknowledge the harms, right?
Yeah.
But this idea of deservingness that we all hold, I got it. That's a really interesting and useful edge to explore in growing our own compassion.
So maybe what I want to think about now is if we could get really granular, like we know that boys in schools oftentimes are receiving punishments, consequences at a higher rate than others. What are ways, and what we talk about in this show is like, what we know is that because first of all, the teaching profession is very few men in teaching profession, 74, 75, it hovers in that area. What percentage of teachers are women compared to men? But knowing that there's so few male educators and knowing that, the student population is about 50-50, more or less in most schools, right? So we have people who don't even understand how boys are learning and the fact that they learn differently, but they're out trying to operate them. They should be sitting quietly, writing neatly, not talking back, being still, all the typical good student qualities. How do you help educators, definitely, either educators who are struggling with either their male students or I would say that's more specific. Like, because what we know is that, what happened in my class, I didn't care if you moved around. I wasn't expecting everybody to sit still.
Yeah. That's going to take a lot of practice for an educator who's not used to that and has a different expectation, right? Yeah. So this is a great opportunity to talk a little bit about the sequence of learning that we take people through our Compassion and Dignity certificate program, which is an online master's degree. It's offered through CU Boulder. And also this is the sequence of our book on creating compassionate change in school communities. So we start with the inside, but we call it an inside out approach to school change. And so the first thing I might invite an educator who's struggling with boys in their classroom, for example, is to use that contemplative practices that we introduce in the first part of our courses. So I said the first course is really this foundation of mindfulness, working with easy beings. The second part is focused on two parts, self-compassion, and because it goes with it, this core idea of dignity, that we all have dignity by virtue of being human beings. And that how we treat others, we can engage in dignity denying actions or dignity conferring actions. And then the third course is where we can start to work with those kids who are difficult. We talk about widening the circle of compassion and compassion in the world. Yeah. And so we talk about practicing compassion for neutral people we don't know so well. These might be people in our school community that we see every day and never even say hello to, but they're in our consciousness. They're out there. And so we actually sit in contemplative practice and we imagine them and we wish them well. We imagine that some days they may be suffering and we picture that and we say, may you be free of suffering. And then we move to it's sometimes traditionally called difficult people, but it's really difficult people for us, right? Somebody who's difficult for Ashanti is not the same person who's difficult for Bill, right? And so people who push my buttons, whatever it is they do, they're pushing my buttons. I sit in contemplative practice and I've put them in front of me and I say these phrases and I notice the resistance that comes up. I just notice what comes up as I wish them well, as I wish them free of suffering. We expand that in that third course also to all beings, maybe our whole community in the school first, everybody outside the building and the community, and then the whole world. And we're offering these phrases, we're widening that. And that's the inside part. To address the problem you're talking about, though, requires a team of educators working together on policies, on routines, on habits of mind and ways of thinking about what a classroom should be like. That requires the whole school to get around. I mean, this is a challenge for teachers. I got one discipline policy in my classroom. This teacher has this one over here, and you're the principal. You wish it was all the same, but it's not. And the kids all know that, right? So if we want a different orientation to what it is to have a harmonious school community, then we have to work together. And that's the fourth course, which is the synchronous capstone course. And we start to introduce different sets of tools. We have this compassion organizing framework that we use. And that comes from organizational studies. It comes from business. And it's helps people think and see their schools as systems where we can start to look at, okay, where is their everyday suffering in the school? And where is that suffering inequitably experienced by particular groups of students? You gave us boys to think with. How are boys suffering in this school? And why do they suffer and what's the pattern way about that? Is that about them? Like, we tend to think about it as either their personality or some characteristic of the kid or their family, or we think about it as this interpersonal dynamic. But no, like, this same kid will walk in 10 years from now if we don't change the school. They won't be the same individual. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like we recreate the same thing over and over again. What's doing that? So we really invite teachers to think, and they come in cohorts of 3-4 educators and maybe an assistant principal or librarian, counselor. What are the policies that make this kind of suffering just keep coming up over and over again? And then, how, using this compassionate action framework, organizing framework, what actions could we take to do that? Then we map our schools. Who's going to be with us? Who's going to be on the sidelines? Who might oppose what we're doing? And we think about, what is it that we need to say to these different people? And we map that onto the contemplative practice. Our allies are our easy beings, right? The bystanders, they're the neutral people that we don't know that much. And then our opponents are our difficult people. But we start to think about how we can interact with them and start to talk to them about what we want to see, the change in our schools. And then they wrap that up in an action plan at the end of our summer course to go out and do in their schools.
Say those three again. You got your allies, right? You got your allies, right?
You got your allies, you got your bystanders.
Bystanders.
And then you got potential opponents.
Opponents, yeah.
This is basic social movement theory, basic movement mobilization theory. This is how you think about it. You want to work on getting your allies to do something for you, getting your bystanders to become allies, and really trying to understand the underlying need that your opponents have that you might meet. You may not ever persuade them fully, right? We got to move, but we can move forward with a big, critical mass in our school community moving forward. And we got to respect our opponents and make them feel heard, right? And that's why we practice. We do some rehearsals with people, having conversations about their plans.
Bill, this was amazing. We could probably talk for another hour. I want people to know, thank you for that clip. Thank you for that, because I think it actually is really helpful. And it's really helpful to have the conversations to not ignore what we're seeing, right? We talked about that earlier. Like, if we know at our school, and if the administrators know, I'm getting 20 referrals a day, 18 of them are boys. What is happening, and what are teachers envisioning and seeing, and what are they not talking about that they're having barriers with? Because if we don't get to name it, if we don't start naming it, it doesn't stop. I mean, as a former administrator, I dealt with all the referrals. So, and my principal hated having kids in the hallway. But I'm not one of these teachers I'm not one of the administrators who's going to just throw you back to class. I'm going to figure out what's going on. Hey, what happened? Tell me, this is what the referral says, but you tell me what happened on your end. So I'm trying to read a teacher's vision through paper, but I need to hear your story to understand, because right here it just says you threw a chair. And if that's the case, then there's a consequence involved maybe with that. But why did you throw a chair if you threw a chair? What was the story behind the chair, right? And I think that oftentimes the teachers are just like, I just want this person removed. And as a teacher who has been that teacher, I get it. And I need to know the deeper picture of what's going on to understand how to make solutions in the future, So thank you for those tips, because I think schools need that and educators need that. And definitely we can't just say, I'm going to kick you out and hope that somebody else is going to help solve the problem if I'm not going to get down to the roots, because I got 180 days with you. And if by day 12, I'm already irritated with you, it's going to be a long school year for you and that student, And students have this unhidden power. They don't have a whole lot of power, but they got convening power, and you see what
they have agency.
Oh, and they got that power of bringing their peers along to nonsense that sometimes so how can people find this book? How to say the name of the book again, clearly for everyone. We're going to put all this in the show notes, and then say the name of the book, where people can find it, where they can find your course. And then I'm going to ask you to just close with like one thing you want folks to take away from this conversation,
Yeah, great. So the name of our book is Creating Compassionate Change in School Communities, Leading Together to Address Everyday Suffering in Schools. You can get it at any online retailer that you prefer to use, whether that's the big company like Amazon or bookshop.org and Indie Books. Get it at both places. And the other ways you can connect to us are through the Renee Crown Wellness Institute, through our Compassion and Dignity for Educators page. We will be offering this summer for educators an 8-week Cultivating Compassion training course. That is a course developed by one of our co-authors, Duthan Jempa. And we're also going to be doing a book study this summer led by a pair of our educators. So you can look for that on our website if you would like to read and explore this book with other folks. And you can also sign up for this online certificate program. It's one of 3 certificates that you get towards a master's in teacher leadership through the University of Colorado Boulder, where I'm on faculty. And we'd love to see you in those course. My colleague Ashley Popman and I co-teach that.
Fantastic.
So big message that I'm going to do 2 sentences if I can. So one is, compassion can rejuvenate educators as professionals in a time of difficulty and offers a pathway towards healing in schools through creating compassionate change. And compassionate school change requires both inner and outer work to understand and develop the skills for meeting suffering that we feel inside and the suffering we encounter in the world. So that's what I hope people take.
There it is. Bill Penuel, thank you so much for being on this show.
Ashanti, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I've appreciated this conversation so much.
It's been beautiful. We have more to talk about. So I think this is just an opportunity for us to begin the first connection, and there's more to come. More to come. I believe that.
Sometime when we're in the Bay, I hope we can both in the Bay when I'm there, because I'm there pretty regularly because my in-laws live there.
Okay.
Love to get together for coffee. So
let's do it.
Something. Yeah.
Hey, folks, Bill and I share our masks here publicly, but you don't have to share your mask publicly. We have a tool that you can go and make your mask anonymously, millionmask.org. I encourage you to go make a mask, maybe invite a friend to make a mask, and then maybe you all talk about it. find the ways. The Master Anonymous, we want to have you as a part, as an organization. We have just reached 85,000 masks around the world. So we invite you to, if you haven't made a mask yet, go do that. And thank you for being a part of this episode today. Bill, we'll see you real soon. Take good care. And thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye now.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.